I would like to say that in climbing, there are some pretty obvious things you can do to become better at climbing. First and foremost, we have the obvious climbing, which is pretty translatable to climbing. We got pull-ups, which is good for the pulling power, strength, prowess, power aspect of climbing.
And then we have the legendary finger training, which is superbly excellent for climbing.
But that is not what we're going to be talking about in today's video, because those are all pretty blatantly obvious. In today's video, I want to talk about unnecessary beneficial things you can train for climbing. Yay, here we go. Now, these things are not going to be groundbreaking by any means, but man, when a climber has these things, you know it, and when they don't, it's very apparent. Now, you don't necessarily need these things to become good at climbing, but having these definitely help you climb gooder. The first and foremost thing I would like to mention is joint integrity of the knee. It's honestly a pretty ironically funny story. It goes something like, strong climber gets into awkward knee position, bends it slightly, and out of nowhere, pop! Now, these knee injuries fortunately do not happen as often as you would like to think, and a climber could go their whole career without ever having to worry about their knees discombobulating. However, for those very slight rare situations where the super strong climber puts their knee in an awkward position and they bend it just a little bit, that little bit of a bop will discontinue your climbing progression for a very long time until said injury has healed to full accordance with your ability to climb where you used to be. Now, allow me to demonstrate just a few slight knee exercises that you can do to make sure your knees are nice and injury resistant. My always go-to stretch for the knees is sitting right on your heels with your knees on the ground, lay your back against the ground. That basically just enforces a full flexion of the knees and it stretches out the quadriceps particularly nice. The second thing you can do is do some really deep lunges where you really force your knee over your toes in alternating fashion. Now, lastly, you could break your knees, in which case you're going to start with a pretty square stance and drop the knee inwards, switch it to the other knee, focusing the weight on the knee that's bent. The second thing we're going to talk about is pretty related to the first one, and it's just general flexibility. This means just having the general abilities to raise your arm overhead without being hindered. This means you could touch your toes or the floor without having to bend your knee relatively easily. When walking may have you slip and then you drop down into a split and it's just not a problem. When climbing a problem that requires a high foot, you're able to throw up a high foot no matter how high. Having higher general flexibility allows you more options of movement when you are climbing. Even I must admit that stretching in itself is not the most glorious or fantastic thing to do. So select one stretch that you feel like you're particularly bad at and then just focus on it for 10 to 15 minutes after each climbing session. Generally speaking, as your flexibility improves, you will start to feel a lot more mobile and loose when you're climbing on the wall. The third thing will have to be jumping. Now, this jumping could come in many shapes, forms, and sizes, but just having the basic coordination and strength to hop around like a rabbit, I find it very useful for trying to do big dynamic moves on the wall. And for me personally, because I know I'm pretty good at jumping, it really does help me do more dynamic moves on the wall. Of course, it doesn't always translate it to it as well, but in terms of the mentality aspect of it, when I see a straight up dyno, I'm like, oh, okay, I got this. I could definitely reach. I could reach it, but maybe I can't hold it, but I could definitely reach it. So it's a big mental boost for me. If you wish to train the jumping aspect, I recommend doing a box jump where you're relatively comfortable, starting from a pretty close position, going up, landing smoothly, and stepping back downwards. And just one of the quickest side notes, jumping is not as simple as it looks, especially when you add an approach. Here's what I mean. Now, standing up, there's no way that I can actually jump on top of my car like this from a standing position. I wish I could, but not. However, using big brain technique and prowess and practicing the jump technique over and over again, haven't done this in 10 years. I failed the first time. Let me try again. Holy shit! It's been forever since I've done that. But because I spent time and effort learning how to jump like a rabbit, I now feel fairly confident anytime I must do a big jumping move on the board. The next item of note involves these bad boys right here. Now, obviously, climbing is first and foremost an upper body type activity. So having really strong legs is just totally unnecessary. But having a little bit of strength in your legs is always a good thing. If you could do one dragon squat, I would say that's about all the leg power you will ever need in terms of leg power and mobility mashed together harmoniously. But you're asking yourself, what is this dragon squat, you say? Well, allow me to try to demonstrate. I'm sure you understand that a pistol squat is a one-legged squat. But a dragon squat is a one-legged squat where the front leg goes behind the back leg in the bottom position. Forgive me if I cannot go down and back up. Oh my god, that was hard. I had to use assistance, but you get the idea. 10 pistol squats per leg should suffice you with more than enough strength for all of the rest of your climbing career. Lastly, we come to the thing known as pushing strength. You see, in climbing, a lot of times you may find yourself in need of having to mantle on top of something. Or you may find that you need to press against two surfaces to stay afloat. In which case, the very common exercise known as the push-ups will suffice in building up your triceps, chest, and some shoulders. Not only does working on pushing activities help balance yourself out in terms of your physique and help prevent somewhat of an injury from happening due to overuse from constantly pulling downwards, that's the aforementioned benefits of, you know, being able to mantle on top of stuff and push. Fun fact, did you know that some climbers could do more pull-ups than they can push-ups? Now, if that is you, you have some serious strength imbalances that you should definitely work on. And to be honest, again, I know great climbers that can't do none of the things I just described, but if you do enough of all this shenanigan, piled up all these little tiny percentages, stack on top of each other, it will start to make a difference in your climbing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time, partner.